Welcome back, everyone, for Chapter 2 of Extraordinary You by Jacqueline Ortiz. So with Chapter 2, we step into Part 2, which is the quest for your authentic self. The quest for your authentic self advances your pilgrimage inward toward deeper discovery of who you are and what motivates you to act and react the way that you do. This awareness of your limiting thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and behavior, coupled with my tools and techniques for dramatic change, will inspire and empower you to transform your life. It is an intimate exploration and healing of your authentic soul. Chapter 2, Rebirth. Rebirth is the resurrection of your authentic self. I'm losing it. No, you're not. You are not losing your grip on reality. You are not in crisis, nor are you going crazy. To you, it may feel like you are, but you are not. You may be feeling restless, frustrated, angry, insecure, confused, irrational, indecisive, sad, disappointed, disillusioned, disheartened, depressed, or lost. It may be because after all those years of striving and struggling, you finally arrived where you always believed the sweet spot in life would be, but you were stunned to find out that it wasn't. You simply aren't happy. This is not all it was cracked up to be. So if this isn't it, where is it? What does it look like? Or perhaps you have always been a free spirit, going along for the ride, but the joyride ended up at a dead end. It looks nothing like the nirvana you expected to find. Now you are going through the motions of living. You are simply existing. So now what? Where do you go from here? Or is this all there is? Or you might have piggybacked through life by riding on someone else's train. When you boarded someone else's train, you bought into his or her expectations, his visions of what he wanted for your life, thereby sealing your fate. That is, until now. Now you want to step off and step out, shining the light onto your very own path. But what is your path? Which train do you want to board? Or perhaps you have worked your tushy off. You have lined up all your ducks in a row. You have paid your dues and contributed more than your share of sweat equity. And still, life hasn't rewarded you accordingly. You have had a disproportionate share of setbacks, false starts, and losses. It just isn't fair. You have done everything right, yet you can't seem to get ahead. Life is far from being perfect or fair or even rosy. This isn't what you signed up for. You feel disillusioned, disheartened, and perhaps even despair at the state of your affairs. You feel like giving in and giving up. When doors keep slamming in your face, what do you do? Where do you go? Or perhaps you have invested so much time and resources that you don't want to admit that you made a mistake, that you failed, because this isn't what you truly desired. And now you are at a major crossroads asking yourself, after investing so much time, do I still keep plugging along with the status quo, or should I cut my losses and start anew? Whatever road you got to this point, welcome it. Where you are now is exactly where you need to be. It is an opportunity for rebirth, not necessarily a second chance to fix your life, as much as it is a profound, esoteric, inner awakening of consciousness. What you are experiencing is a rite of passage that leads to a revelation of your soul's authentic desires. If you are at a point in your life where you are feverishly questioning your life choices and wondering what your purpose is in life, wondering how you got to this point and where you go next, these aren't the signs of a breakdown or even a meltdown. These are symptoms of a transformational growth spurt taking place deep within the recesses of your soul. What you are experiencing is a sacred rite of passage, a period of introspection, of regeneration, an awakening to a dawn, a rebirth. More often than not, in today's society, when one feels inner discomfort, turmoil, sadness, or loss of confidence, doctors and people in his inner circle are overeager to diagnose and label it. It is often diagnosed as some type of crisis, such as a midlife crisis, or it is diagnosed as a mental disorder. Although unfortunately this could be the case, it rarely is. I'm suggesting that you include another very plausible and almost always overlooked alternative, that you are experiencing a rebirth. Rebirth. Being reborn is not a religious conversion, but a deep inner metamorphosis, a transformational growth spurt. It's a time of inner reflection and introspection. The more turmoil and confusion you are experiencing, the more that you have to be grateful for, because it is at this point that you are at the very core of your rite of passage. A rite of passage is a period in which you shed your old, outdated beliefs, convictions, and lifestyle choices that no longer serve or suit you to emerge anew. It is a period of intense questioning, perceptual shifts, learning lessons, insights, inner growth, rediscovering your inner soul, revelations, and reconnection with your authentic purpose. Your rite of passage is a transformational period. It is marked by a lot of personal and lifestyle shifts, choices, decisions, turning points, changes, and cleansing. It is a sacred, intimate journey toward rediscovering, regenerating, and resurrecting a new, deeper wisdom of inner enlightenment. One thing is for certain: once you open the doorway and take a step through it, there's no going back. It is like old paint that is chipping and cracking. At first, the chips and cracks are small and barely detectable, but with time, the chips and cracks get bigger and wider until you can no longer hide them or patch them up with a superficial coat of paint. What you need to do is strip away all the old layers. You must strip it down to the base and prime it before you can apply a new coat. Once you see the chips and cracks in your life, you can't go back and pretend you didn't see them, or pretend that there isn't something different that might be better for you, and you won't be satisfied until you chip away at the old and make room for your newly awakened, authentic self. A rite of passage is the voyage everyone must take to emerge on the other side. What awaits you on the other side is a spiritual rebirth, an awakening, a connection, a reconnection with your authentic self. So no, you aren't losing it. When you feel restless, dissatisfied, frustrated, angry, disheartened, or other unfamiliar feelings, uncomfortable feelings, don't misdiagnose yourself. Don't assume that you are in crisis or losing it. What you are experiencing is a rebirth. Get excited, celebrate, rejoice. A new dawn is upon you. When we are young, we are free to dream and dream big. We consciously or subconsciously set paths that we secretly and deeply wish to follow, ones that will take us to the promised lands of our dreams. Unfortunately, as we grow up, often it is almost as if we get lost in a fog. We get so caught up in the daily events of growing up, of being responsible, of following societal rules, of compromises, of making our parents or our caretakers happy, of making ends meet, and of facing setbacks that we veer from our paths. Or it could be that you were a free spirit or didn't believe in yourself enough to dream big. Nonetheless, you didn't design a path for yourself. You let the winds take you, only to discover that you didn't like where the winds blew you. Years later, you took off the blinders to discover that there was so much more waiting out there for you. You woke up, looked around, and said, "Oh, shoot, where am I? This is my life? What happened to my life? This isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what I wanted. I want a do-over. I want what I want, not this." You feel a whole host of very real, very painful emotions. You feel cheated, disappointed, depressed, disenchanted, disgraced, disturbed, destroyed, and delirious. You feel anger for all the years wasted, for taking the road most traveled, for settling, for not having the courage to listen to your own inner music. Yes, it's unfortunate, but it doesn't mean that you're losing it. Instead, view it as an opportunity for a rebirth. Rebirth. There comes a time in everyone's lives where there seems to be more questions than answers. Even if you're not entirely sure where you are, that doesn't mean you aren't where you are supposed to be. If it doesn't feel right or comfortable or secure, trust in the infinite wisdom of the universe, that you are just where you need to be at this very point in your life. You are in a transition period of your life. This is a time of intense inner questioning, of laying low, of rediscovery, of rebirth. Rebirth is the process of excavating deep within your very core for truth, wisdom, and enlightenment. Rebirth is not something that happens overnight, or something that you outgrow, or something that you get over. It is a process. It is a sacred, mysterious, long, winding journey that takes you deep within the recesses of your subconscious, your heart, and your soul. It isn't something that we can pencil in at our convenience. Often it comes at us in the form of a crisis, a crossroads, a turning point, a dead end, or even as a speed bump. It can run the whole gamut. My rebirth began as I awakened to the realization that I wasn't losing it. I wasn't crazy. And I wasn't in the throes of a crisis. Most of all, I realized that I shouldn't feel guilty for wanting more out of life. I realized that I could be grateful for everything and everyone in my life, while still being dissatisfied with some aspect of my life. After all, as a human becoming, my purpose is to evolve, to grow, to aspire. My rebirth was a time for deep inner soul searching, as I'm very energetic. It was often difficult for me to spend quiet time contemplating. She was very energetic. Check out the Self-Love Diva on her YouTube channel or any of her Facebook or Instagram videos. You'll see her energy. It was palpable. That was one of the things I admired most about Jacqueline Ortiz. So she says, as I'm very energetic. I admired that so much about her. It was often difficult for me to spend quiet time contemplating. I often felt that I was wasting time, that I should be doing something, anything. But eventually I realized that the more busy work I did, the more scattered I became, and the more dead ends that I encountered. Finally, resigned, I spent time writing in my journal, meditating, going on nature walks, and focusing on the important things and people in my life. This introspection that I had resisted so much was a necessary soul cleansing, and it was what I needed in order to get reacquainted with my authentic self. Gradually, my guilt, confusion, and hopelessness started to dissipate as feelings of relief and hope surfaced. Once I allowed myself to open up to my heart's desires, not only did I feel a huge burden lifted from my heart, but I also experienced a renewed sense of aliveness, a surge of energy and optimism. At this point in my life, I didn't have all the details of how exactly I wanted my life to be, but I felt rejuvenated enough to restart my journey, confident that I would take the right paths when opportunities presented themselves. I felt a sense of inner peace, and I felt that I was finally back on the right path, even if I didn't have a detailed final destination. My rebirth gave me the confidence to know that I was worthy of more and that I deserved authentic bliss in all areas of my life. It was at this point that I made a commitment to uncover my life purpose and to not settle for less than my authentic self and my true purpose. Rebirth isn't usually something we can plan for as much as it is something that happens to us. Whether it is a yearning or an urgent wake-up call, it is something that takes hold of us and grabs our attention. It is undeniable. It is indisputable. And it is unavoidable. Crisis mode. When written in Chinese, the word crisis is composed of two characters. One represents danger, and the other represents opportunity. John F. Kennedy. Although the origin of the word crisis is to decide, to judge, In modern times, it is perceived to have a negative connotation. Crises are seen as things that weaken you, disempower you, like experiencing a computer virus malfunction. Nowadays, it seems that for every stage of our lives, there is a crisis mode, label that the people are grouped into whenever they are feeling or behaving out of the ordinary. The most comprehensive and widely used one is the midlife crisis, which applies to all middle-aged people at the slightest show of eccentricity or individuality. God forbid we question the status quo or want to explore a fork in the road or spice up our lives a little. Immediately one gets labeled as being in the throes of a midlife crisis. Once upon a time, it was frowned upon, even taboo, to be identified as having a midlife crisis. Now it is so commonplace that it is almost chic, or a conversation topic, or expected, or seen as a rite of passage to experience a crisis. If you aren't old enough to fall into the midlife crisis group, you can have a teen crisis, or a quarter-life crisis, or a Generation X crisis. If you are too old to fall into those categories, you can experience an empty nest crisis, or a retirement crisis. Nowadays, it seems so much more popular or dramatic to label everything as crisis, rather than as opportunities for growth, as contemplation, not to blame the media for everything, because we are personally responsible for how we choose to label and look at ourselves. But drama sells. A headline depicting a crisis or epidemic is definitely more of an attention grabber than one about a contemplative period or a growth spurt. Extraordinary size 6. Identify which crisis you think applies to you or a loved one, then relabel it. Reframe the way you look at the situation. Take out the word crisis and replace it with rebirth. Change midlife crisis to midlife rebirth. Change teen crisis to teen rebirth. Change emotional crisis to emotional or spiritual rebirth. Just substituting the word rebirth for crisis changes the connotation of the situation. Crisis invokes chaos, upheaval, being out of control, a splintered personality, despair, turmoil, or illness. Rebirth is more inspiring and empowering. In reality, there are so many more crisis labels because as a species, we are growing. If I'm not referring to numbers, but to consciousness. We're no longer satisfied with the status quo. We're no longer willing to endure or to settle for less. We know that there is something more, and we as humans want to claim it. And as long as we are willing to grow, to live life to the fullest, to be open to learning our lessons, we will experience new breakthroughs and rebirths. What we must do is to understand and identify that what we are facing is an awakening of consciousness. We must change the perception or belief that we are in crisis into the understanding that as willing participants in this universe, we are undergoing a transformational rebirth, and we must welcome it, trusting that we will emerge on the other side stronger, wiser, healthier, happier, and more whole. So at this time, I'd love for you to pause this video and take a moment to reflect on this extraordinary size number 6. Identify which crisis you think applies to you or a loved one, and then relabel it. How can you consider it a rebirth? Feel into that. Feel into the impact of this. Feel into the energetic shift of it. And then we'll continue finishing up this chapter. Pause this video now, and we'll be right back. Calling a spade a spade. Claim it, name it, face it. Realization doesn't have to lead to resignation or desperation. Let realization be your catalyst for transformation. When someone continually feels ill, his concern often grows into anxiety, even panic over the unknown. But once he goes to a doctor and gets a concrete diagnosis, he will often feel a sense of relief. Now he knows what is wrong. There's a label, a diagnosis, something concrete so he can identify what he has. The diagnosis may not be great, but at least there is no longer a mysterious, unknown shadow hovering over his head. Once you have a diagnosis, you can research it and understand it. Then you can communicate the information to others so that you can heal it, or at least learn to cope with it. A similar process occurs when you accurately identify what you are experiencing. You feel a sense of relief because you understand what is happening to you and that you are not alone. Others have traveled this road before and emerged stronger and wiser, and so can you. Naming it brings a certain level of comfort and relief. You are able to stand back and research it, dig for answers, search for ways to address and heal what is happening. Being armed with information is like being armed with ammunition. You can deal with it. You comprehend that you aren't crazy or losing it. You are just in a transitional period of transformation, and it will pass. You aren't alone, you aren't abnormal, and you aren't certifiable. You are just in a metamorphic stage on the way to awakening. Once you know what it is, you are free to triumph over it. Once you know that you aren't in a crisis, but rather in the midst of a transformational rebirth, you feel an enormous weight lift from your soul. When you know what you are experiencing, you are able to rise out of the fog of illusions and face the new day. Transitional period. A transitional period is similar to a Grand Central Station terminal in that it is a place to pause while you evaluate where you are going and the best route to take to get to where you want to go. The transitional period isn't meant to be your final destination or the end of the road. It is a means to a new adventure. It is a time to release the old, outdated you and to mourn the old you so that you can make room and move through the next phase in your life. The transitional period can be marked by uncertainty, upheaval, fear, unknowing, mayhem, madness, frustration, feeling destitute, quiet desperation, unrest, silent cries, confusion, or disillusionment. It is a time when you feel overwhelmed by questions, choices, uncertainty, intersections, and forks in the road. And consequences weigh heavily on you. You don't know where to turn or which direction leads out of the dark abyss. It is a period of many changes and choices, and many people, even you, will question the sanity of your choices. Other people will perhaps even ridicule, judge, and criticize you and act incredulous. You may be tempted to retreat to the familiar, the road most traveled, to the tried and true. Ironically, when you are in the throes of the deepest despair, it is at this point that you are closest to the light, to a breakthrough. Stay the course, don't falter, and don't turn and run from the light. The light is what will set you free. There is a price to pay to be shown the light. You must move through personal trials, through the dark, through the unknown, and through uncharted territory. Rewiring is taking place within you, a mental rewiring that's leading to a new way of thinking and a new attitude. Your old thought processes will be replaced by new ones that are much better attuned to the new human becoming that is emerging. There is also a spiritual rewiring in which you reconnect to your Creator, to something greater than what you can see. The transitional period isn't rosy and gentle. It is harsh, and it rattles you to the very core. It requires patience, compassion, self-acceptance, courage, and for you to exhibit a deep self-love during the process of change that you are undergoing. It is a time to retreat to your inner sanctuary to rediscover your authentic self. Trust me, it isn't easy, but it is worth it. It is in times of major upheaval and unrest that most of the inner work happens. You are undergoing a transformation of the soul. One thing is certain, because of all the rewiring that you will experience, you will emerge on the other side different, stronger, and wiser. You will no longer be who you once thought you were, and you will be better for it. Awakening. Just because you can't go back in time to make a new start doesn't mean you can't start now to make a new beginning. Awakening is what you experience after meditation, contemplation, introspection, insights, and revelations. You awaken to the inner truth. Life becomes clearer, more focused, and more radiant. It's an awakening to possibilities, to new doors opening up, to new adventures, to a new enlightened you. You awaken to your inner passion, to your authentic self. You reconnect to your essence, the one you had silenced over the years by distrusting it, disowning it, denying it, ignoring it, and suppressing it. Even during all of your neglect and rejection, your authentic essence has always been present, patiently waiting to be summoned. Awakening is not a one-time deal. It is not like puberty or menopause, where you reach a certain age and the changes start, and then you reach another age and the changes stop. You don't stop growing. You are always evolving, growing, improving. Life changes, circumstances change, the world changes, and people change, all of which influences or forces you to change. To feel alive, you must always be learning, growing, changing, and evolving. All of these are catalysts for ongoing rebirth and reawakening. An awakening is a call to action. This can be terrifying because It's human nature to want to stay within one's personal comfort zone. Taking action involves the unknown and may cause pain or discomfort. At least until the transitional period is over and you embrace your expanded consciousness. Then the process starts all over again as you set a new goal to transcend. Awakening for you may come in the way of a clear image or vision of exactly what you desire. Or it may be just a sense that this isn't it. And that there's something else that's waiting for you. Regardless, it means that you take personal responsibility. You realize that there is something better out there for you, and you set your intention to manifest it. Then you go for it. If you have a clear roadmap, begin your journey. Fulfill your life's purpose. Live your passion. If you aren't sure just which road to take, that's no excuse to stand back and let life pass you by. If you aren't sure where you are headed, keep plugging along, keep reading, keep doing the extraordinary sizes, and keep taking little steps. Everything will happen in its divine time, and for the highest good of all. Trust. Have faith. I'll share with you what I learned throughout my transformational pilgrimage to awakening and rebirth. It's not about losing it, but finding it. It's not about tuning out, but tuning in. It's not about doing, but being. It's not about standing down, but standing up. It's not about going all out, but going within. It's not about getting it, but giving it. It's not about running from, but running toward. It's not about bracing yourself, but embracing yourself. It's not about regressing, but addressing it. It's not about retreating, but treating it. It's not about fighting it, but aspiring to it. It's not about covering it up, but uncovering it. It's not about surviving it, but thriving. It's not about avoiding, but unveiling. It's not about rebelling, but revealing. It's not about fearing it, but feeling it. It's not about dealing with it, but healing it. It's not about reforming, but transforming. It is not about breakdown, but a breakthrough. Awaken to the beauty that is everywhere and in everything. Awakening is an emergence from the ordinary to the extraordinary. Welcome. Use this time and this book as allies in your quest for your authentic self. By consciously and diligently reading this book, using the tools, and completing the extraordinary sizes, you will experience a smoother, more compassionate, more direct pilgrimage toward your authentic self and an extraordinary life worth living and celebrating. We thank Jacqueline Ortiz, our angel, for making this book possible for us to be together for this journey of uncovering your extraordinary you. Join me for discussion 2 on chapter 2 in our book club. To access that, you will need to join our Facebook group, and we look forward to seeing you there. We look forward to witnessing what your transformation is like, and knowing that this is an extraordinary journey of you becoming extraordinary you. So thank you so much for joining us today, and wishing you a most blessed and beautiful day. Bye for now. I'm Jacqueline Bambenek with Vibrational Energy Solutions, Transformational Life Coach, and your resilience and recovery mentor. Take care, and we'll see you on chapter 3 or chapter 2 if you're in our book club.